There's a version of loneliness nobody really talks about, and it's not being left out. It's pushing people away on purpose while wishing they'd stayed. You know the feeling, your phone's buzzing, someone's reaching out, and instead of answering, you just stare at it. Not because you don't care, but because responding feels like more than you have energy for. And then, hours later, the guilt sets in. Not just for ignoring them, but for wondering if this is who you are now. Someone who pushes away the exact people who would actually help. I think there's a real difference between being alone and being lonely. Alone is just a state. Lonely is a feeling that can follow you into a room full of people or into a phone full of unanswered messages from people who clearly still care. And the cruel part is, the more isolated you feel, the harder it gets to let anyone back in. Opening up starts to feel like a risk instead of a relief, especially if you've done it before and been met with silence or a shrug or someone who just didn't know what to do with what you handed them. So you learn to just stop handing it over. You keep the messages short, you say you're fine, you let the phone buzz. I think a lot of this starts earlier than we realize. Somewhere along the way, a lot of us learned that needing people was risky. Maybe you reached out once, as a kid or a teenager, and got brushed off. Maybe you were the one who always had to be fine because someone else in your life needed the space to fall apart and there wasn't room for both of you to struggle at once. So you got good at carrying things quietly. And quiet becomes a habit. And habits over enough years start to feel like personality. But here's the thing I think gets missed. Feeling like a burden doesn't mean you are one. It just means you're carrying something heavy enough that you're scared of what happens if you set it down in front of someone else. I remember a stretch where I did this constantly. Friends would check in genuinely, not out of obligation, and I'd type out, "I'm good, just busy," delete it, retype the exact same thing, and send it anyway. Not because it was true, because it was easier than explaining something I didn't fully understand myself yet. And each time I did that, I told myself I was protecting them from something. Really, I think I was just protecting myself from being seen clearly and maybe being found lacking. The people who matter aren't waiting for a perfect version of your feelings. They're not going anywhere just because you're a little messy, a little quiet, a little behind on replying. Most of the time they're just waiting for you to let them back in, even a little. I'm not saying it's easy. Some people have opened up before and gotten hurt for it, dismissed, ignored, made to feel like too much. That kind of thing sticks. It makes you cautious in a way that looks like coldness from the outside, but really it's just protection. Once you've been made to feel like a burden for having a bad day, it's hard not to flinch the next time you're having one. But maybe the answer isn't never opening up again. Maybe it's just being more careful about who you open up to. Not shutting the door on everyone, just being a little more selective about who gets the key. There's a difference between guarding your heart and bricking it up entirely. One keeps you safe. The other just keeps you alone, which was never actually the goal, something else worth sitting with. Isolation doesn't just cost you connection in the moment. It quietly convinces you that you're the only one who feels this way, that everyone else has their circle figured out, their people locked in, while you're the one struggling to let anyone close. But that's rarely true. Most people are carrying some version of the same hesitation. They're just better at hiding it, or luckier in who reached for them first. If you're the person who goes quiet when things get hard, who lets the messages sit, who tells everyone you're fine because the real answer feels like too much to unload, I'm not going to tell you to just reach out more. That advice never actually helped anyone in the moment. It just adds guilt on top of everything else you're already carrying. I'll just say this. The isolation feels safer, but it's not actually protecting you. It's just delaying the moment you'll need someone. And when that moment comes, it's okay to answer the phone. It's okay to say, actually, I'm not okay. It's okay to let someone see the parts you've been hiding. You don't have to do this by yourself, even if it feels like you've been doing exactly that for a long time now. Take care. I'll see you around.